Hello and welcome to Subsplash Academy. My name's Austin and I'm a part of the client services team here. Today, we're going to be talking about setting up for success for your Sunday service using church management. To do that, we're going to cover 3 topics. First is creating the service plan for your Sunday service. Second is managing the volunteers for that service. And third is setting up your check-in stations. So with a lot to cover, let's get into it. All right, so when it comes to creating your first Sunday service plan, there's a couple different places that you could start. The first place that you could start is by creating the repeating event for your Sunday service. We would do this by going to Events and then Event Tracks. And event tracks are just church management's term for repeating or recurring events. However, the other place that you could start is by creating the actual plan for your Sunday service first. And that would be my personal recommendation, and you'll see why that's helpful a little bit later. To create a plan for your Sunday service, you would click on Volunteers and then Plans. In Plans, you'll probably see that you already have an example run sheet, sort of as a demonstration of what a typical service plan might look like in church management. But for demonstration purposes, let's go ahead and close this out and create a new one. So I'm going to click New Plan in the upper right-hand corner, and I'm going to title this Sunday Service. And when it comes to creating my service plan, I like starting by creating the basic sections that are going to create the outline of my service. And I'll do that by clicking the little megaphone icon right here. When I click that, it creates a new section, and I'll title this one Pre-Service. And then I'll click it again and make one for the worship portion, the announcements, the message, and dismissal. Once I have my basic outline, I'm going to click this little clock icon to create the event start time. And this is going to correspond to the start time that we set when we actually go and create the event a little bit later on. I'm going to click the left-hand side of that and drag it on up just above the worship where I want the start time of my event to sort of correlate to. Now that I have this basic outline, let's fill it in with some extra details to create a template that is easy for us to plug and play week after week. To do that, we're going to click the 3 dots on the right-hand side, and I'll start by adding a row here to the pre-service. And I might add something like sound check. And let's say sound check takes about 20 minutes, so I'm going to click to the left of that and put in 20. And then I'll add another row below that for rehearsal. And let's say rehearsal takes 40 minutes. And then click those 3 dots again, add another row. We'll say doors open about 20 minutes before the event start time. I'm going to go ahead and fill in the rest of this outline so that you don't have to sit and watch me do that over and over again.
A few moments later.
So you can see here, I have filled in this template with some basic outline materials. So I have places for songs 1, 2, and 3, as well as a little note to insert details about those songs. Then I have a place to insert the announcer's name and the details of the announcements, the speaker's names and any message details that might be important, and the dismisser's name and any dismissal details that might be important. One of my favorite things about our service plans is this little cog icon in the upper right-hand corner. I can add extra columns to this to insert special notes for various teams. So let's say we want to create a column for our band. And let's also do one for production. That should be good. And we want to tell the band when they need to come back to the stage toward the end of the message. So in the band notes, we can add something like insert cue to return to stage. And then week after week, the band always knows their cue to go back up to stage so that they don't end up like me taking a nap in the back, missing the third point that's being made, and then coming up the very beginning of the first song of the post-message worship. Anyway, now that we have our service plan template created, let's start by saving it. We'll click Save in the upper right-hand corner. And then once we see that Sunday service alongside our example run sheet, we're going to change it from this active status to a template status. And we'll do that by clicking the three dots on the right-hand side and then clicking Mark as Template. Now that we have our service template, let's go use it in a repeating event. We'll go to Events and then Event Tracks in the left-hand menu. And remember, Event Tracks is just church management's term for a repeating event. We'll create a new one by clicking New Event Track in the upper right-hand corner, and we'll choose Service Time since this is for our Sunday service. We'll title it Sunday Service, and then go to Event Defaults in the left-hand menu. And there are so many different settings and customizations that you can set in church management. However, this video is not the one for me to go into each one of them one by one. Instead, what I'm going to do is point out the ones that are the most important for setting up for your upcoming Sunday as quickly and as easily as possible. So let's just go to Event Type / Definition and choose a service. Set the start time for 9 o'clock a.m. We'll leave the duration as the default of 90, but set the time zone to Eastern since I'm over in Florida. And then the default plan is where that Sunday service run sheet that we just created is going to come in handy. We're going to click Find. I'll choose that, click Done. And now this template will be automatically filled in for every repeating event that this event track creates. Speaking of which, let's go over to Auto Create and turn this on. This is what turns the event track into a repeating event. And this first line here of number of future events determines how many events out into the future this event track will create at any given time. The default is 5, meaning it will create one for this upcoming Sunday and the 4 Sundays after that. But if I want more than that, I can set it to 8, or if I want less, I can set it to something like 4. We can leave pretty much everything else the same since we already set up most of it, and click Save. Now we'll click View Events, and we'll see the 4 Sunday services that our event track has created for us. And each time one of these Sunday services passes by, a new one will be created automatically. If we want to begin editing the details for each of these services, we can click the check mark in the upper left-hand corner and choose Select All 4 items. Then we'll click Open in Multi-Planner in the right-hand menu. And the multi-planner will be your best friend as a service planner. We'll see those 4 Sundays that we selected, and you'll see the run sheet template that we created earlier inserted into the plan section for each of these Sundays. If I hover over one of those plans and click on it, this right-hand menu will pop out where I can insert all of the necessary details for planning out that Sunday service. And that's really it when it comes to setting up your Sunday service plan. All right, so now that we have our services set up, we need volunteers to make these services happen. To do this, we're going to click Add a New Roster Type here at the bottom of the multi-planner. And a roster is basically like a team of volunteers for your service. So let's make a roster for the band. And let's add the various positions that we'll need to fill within the band. So obviously we need a worship leader. I'll click Add, and then we'll do guitar, drums, obviously necessary, and then lastly, most importantly, accordion. And those are the 4 positions that we need for our upcoming Sunday. Let's continue by saving that. And then you'll actually need to refresh your browser before you see this roster appear in your multi-planner. But once it refreshes, you'll see that roster appear underneath each individual Sunday. And we can then click this Add button here for our upcoming Sunday, and we'll see the needs for each of those positions. And there are a couple different ways that you can go about filling these positions. The first way is by simply clicking on the position and searching for a contact in this right-hand menu. So let's look for Dwight, and we can just click plus and add Dwight Schrute to our worship leader position. However, there is another way to fill this roster, and that's by setting up teams ahead of time and then assigning that team to the specific roster. So let's go do that. We'll start by exiting the multi-planner, we'll click on volunteers and then teams. Since we don't have any teams set up, we'll create a new one by clicking new team in the upper right hand corner, and we'll title this team band. Then we'll go to positions in the left-hand menu and add those same exact positions that we added to the roster. And we'll want to make sure that we spell these exactly the way that we did in our roster. So I'll add a position and call it worship leader. And I'm going to make the worship leader a group reporter, meaning that he's going to be able to fill out an email after the event indicating who actually was in attendance. We'll click continue and then add those same positions. So we'll do guitar, drums, and of course, the accordion. Don't need to do anything with interested, metrics, position notifications at the moment, but in members, we will want to do a couple things. We will want to allow provisional membership for this group, and we'll want to assign group members using the contacts here. So let's click find and find the contacts that we're going to need to fill these positions. Like we already said, we're going to want Dwight for our worship leader. Let's have Pam and Pete and Oscar also join the band. And once we have those group members, we can click this upward pointing arrow to then assign them to one of the positions that we created. So Dwight is going to be our worship leader. Oscar is going to be our guitar player. Pam is going to be on drums. And Pete is on the accordion. If we go back to positions now, we'll see their names appear in each of those positions. We'll click save, double check that our team appears here. Yep, all set and ready to go. So let's go back to events and either click event tracks and click on view events, or we can go to all events in the left-hand menu, and that will pull up all of our Sundays as well. We're going to go back to the multi-planner by clicking the check mark in the upper left, selecting all 4 of our Sundays, and then clicking open in multi-planner in the right-hand menu. Now that we have our team, we can click on assign team here at the bottom of our roster, and we'll see that band team that we created. I'm going to click on that and click done. You'll see all of the positions and the names associated with those positions that we set up in the team section of the dashboard. So we'll click continue, and we'll see those names populate in each of the 4 positions. To then ask these volunteers whether they can actually make it to this Sunday and fulfill these volunteer positions, we can click the Send for Proposed button at the top of this roster, or if you have multiple rosters, you can click the little airplane icon at the top of this Sunday, and that will send out the proposal request to all of the contacts that you have in a roster. As well, just for reference, this is what the emails that your volunteers will receive are going to look like. The last thing that I'll mention on this is, let's say I signed this team, but I actually don't want Oscar on guitar this week. I can click on Oscar's name, click this little X to remove him from this position. I can then search for a different person. Let's look for Jim. There's Jim Halpert. Let's add Jim to this position. And there he is. And as you continue using volunteer management through church management, you'll see that this suggestions menu underneath the search for contacts will increase in the number of contacts that it provides and the specificity of the contacts that it's narrowing down to based on the data that church management collects week after week, based on the people who get assigned to various positions, capabilities that you assign to different people, and the overall history of all the data in your dashboard. So I hope this is enough to get you started using church management for your volunteers on Sunday. The last thing that we're going to do today is talk about setting up your check-in stations. And how you set up your various check-in stations will really depend on the structure of the various ministries that need check-ins. For today, we're going to use a generic children's ministry for our demonstration. And to begin, we're going to start by creating the various classrooms that we're going to need to check our kids into. And we're going to set up those classrooms in the groups section. We'll get there by going to People, and then Overview in the left-hand menu, and then Groups and Teams. Once here, we're going to start by creating a new team or group type by clicking the drop-down menu in the upper left, and then clicking on Define a New Type of Group. And we'll call this a class. And now that we have this new class type, I'm going to create a new class and name it one of the rooms that we need to check our kids into. Let's say the first one is our nursery. I'm then going to assign the positions of volunteers that will need to staff this room. So let's click Add a Position. And let's add a teacher. And let's make them a group reporter. Click Continue. And then let's add another position. Let's say Emotional Support, the most important position. Click Continue. We would then add members to this group, just like we did in the Teams section to staff this. So let's click Find on Group Members. And let's say that David and Creed are going to be in this group, as well as Kevin. David, Creed, and Kevin. Click Done. We're going to assign Creed as the teacher. And then we're going to assign David as emotional support and Kevin as emotional support. The most important thing to do in this group is to allow provisional membership. This is going to be what allows you to add new people, new contacts to this group on Sunday in real time. So if you have a visitor come on Sunday and they aren't already a contact in church management, you'll need to be able to get them checked in and make sure that their kid has somewhere to go, and allowing provisional membership will allow you to add their information to the system to get them checked in. So I will now save this and repeat that process for all the various classes that we need to check kids into.
Later.
All right, now that we have all of our classes set up, let's actually set up our check-in station itself. We'll do that by clicking on Check-ins in the left-hand menu and then Stations. You'll probably see that you already have a check-in station set up by default, but for demonstration purposes, let's create a new one by clicking New Check-in Station in the upper right-hand corner. We'll then name it something like Kids Church Check-in, and then we'll choose a number of settings. First, we'll leave requiring an access PIN number on, just so that anytime somebody comes to this check-in station, it'll automatically time out, lock a person out, and then require this access PIN number to sort of gain access to the check-in station again. Below that is probably the most important part of this entire section, and that's choosing a registration form. Choosing a form allows you to take in new information for a visitor who isn't already a part of your contact database. So let's click Find and search for Kids. You should see a Kids Check-in registration form by default in your dashboard. So we'll choose that. Click Done. If you want to go create a new one, you can do that in the Forms section, but that's a whole other video. For now, let's go through the rest of this section by enabling name tag printing. We won't require a separate tag for parents or a PIN number for checkout, and we'll talk about roll call in another video. The only other thing that's super important is to go to the application permissions section. Setting permissions to this check-in station is another important element of allowing this check-in station to add new contact information to your database in real time on Sunday. So if we don't allow it some sort of a role that allows it to add new data, it won't be able to add that data from that form to your database. So let's click to select roles, and you should see a Subsplash 1 check-in station role option. We'll choose that, click Done, add that, and then save. You should then see this Kids Church check-in station, and you'll be able to actually view this check-in station by clicking View in Browser right underneath that title. When I click on that, it opens up a new tab and lets me know that there are no events open right now because at the time of the filming of this video, it is not Sunday. So give me one moment while I go change the event time so that we can continue the demonstration.
Eventually.
Is that joke getting old yet? Anyway, we can now see our Sunday service event right here. I'm going to click on that and let's get someone checked in. Let's search for Michael. And there's Michael Scott right there. We're going to check him in by clicking check in 1 in the upper right. And then it's going to assign Michael to a group. But we can click on this drop-down menu and then choose the group that we would like to check Michael into. And we'll see those 4 classrooms as well as the band that we created for our team earlier. That's because teams, classes, all of these are under the broad umbrella of groups. So let's check Michael into the pre-K class and uncheck him out of K through 2nd. Click continue. We have his emergency phone number right here, but if we need to change that, we could do so and click continue. All right, but let's say we have somebody new come by. We have a visitor show up with their kid and we need to input their information. We'll click I'm new. And then we'll see that kids check-in registration form that we assigned to this check-in earlier in the process. Let's put in Stephanie Barrett, gender female, date of birth 1/1/2020. Her parents' email address is stephaniesmom@gmail.com, and the phone number is 123-123-1234. Perfect. We have all of Stephanie's most pertinent information. Let's click submit and then check in 1. And it'll ask us what group Stephanie's going to. So she was born in 2020, so she's 3. So maybe pre-K, I have no idea. Let's click continue. We see Stephanie's emergency contact information in case we need to get a hold of Stephanie's mom, and click continue. And now Stephanie's information will show up in the church management dashboard. If we go back to that tab, go to people, and then contacts, we'll see Stephanie Barrett right there and all of that information that we just put in. Then at the end of service, we'll go back to our check-in station, enter our PIN, go back to our Sunday service. Now I want to check Stephanie out. I just search for Stephanie's name, click on her name, check out, and you're all done. The last thing that we really need to talk about is how to set up your printer station if you're going to be printing name tags for your check-ins. And to do that, we're going to start by going back to the dashboard, going to check-ins, and then printers. From here, you'll download the necessary software for either your Mac or PC that you're running your check-in station on. And if you're using multiple check-in stations, all of those check-in stations will then communicate to one print station computer with your single printer, meaning even if you have multiple check-in stations running around the church building on a Sunday, you can only have one printer set up at a time right now. But if you only have one check-in station that will be directly connected to your singular printer, then you don't need to worry about this graph very much and you're all set to go. For more information about connecting your specific printer to your check-in station, check out our support articles about how to connect various printers to your print station and troubleshoot any issues that you run into. And that's it for today. Congratulations, you made it through. I know that was a ton of information, but I hope this was helpful in getting you set up for success for Sunday. Have a great rest of your day, and God bless.